After CM Punk's latest controversial social media post this past week, Dave Meltzer has responded for the first time regarding Punk's outburst on Instagram. We've got the full transcript and details of what Meltzer has had to say in response to Punk calling him a liar. The Acclaimed are the top merch sellers in All Elite Wrestling of 2023, but has their push been halted? We've got details on that. The IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship will be on the line this coming week on Dynamite as Kenny Omega defends against Jeff Cobb. Dax Harwood says some wrestling fans will never be happy. Anna Jay makes her return to AEW television on Rampage. Action Andretti reassure fans that he is fine after a recent injury scare. And Matt Hardy defends the booking of Tony Khan. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrest News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. Let's start off talking about Dave Meltzer and CM Punk. Yes, this is the real rivalry going on in All Elite Wrestling right now. And of course, CM Punk continues to be a talking point in AEW despite his absence from AEW television since the events after All Out in September of 2022. After a quiet few days without much going on regarding the CM Punk AEW story, CM Punk teased a possible return after being out of action with a triceps injury. This would then be followed by an Instagram story in which Punk would blast a number of AEW names, including the likes of Chris Jericho, Jon Moxley, and others. The storm from this saw responses from across the mainstream spectrum in pro wrestling, including the likes of Chris Jericho, who again he called out, Booker T, and everyone that's got a podcast commented on this. Dave Meltzer, of course, was also named in CM Punk's post and was called a liar after a message board post he had written earlier on that day, which seemed to be the catalyst for Punk's actual Instagram post in question. Now, this is what Meltzer had to say. If you're not familiar with the story, if you've been out of the pro wrestling world for the last 7 days, you might not have seen it, so it's best to go through this in a chronological order. So it started when, as I mentioned, Dave Meltzer on a Wrestling Observer message board posted this regarding CM Punk's match with Jon Moxley on Dynamite for the undisputed AEW World Championship last year. Of course, Moxley squashed Punk in about 2 minutes and then built up to their all-out main event for the World Championship. Meltzer said, quote, "Do you know why they didn't advertise Punk versus Moxley longer and why it had a short build? Because Punk agreed to it. Then AEW got a legal letter saying he wasn't down with it and wasn't going to do it, and they didn't know if he'd come until Tony put his foot down. There are a lot of nice things I can say about him, and you can absolutely argue his position on Moxley was correct, but you can't argue he willingly did what he was asked to in that scenario." Now, Punk's Instagram post, the infamous one, was as follows, quote, "Sigh, I wasn't cleared to come back to wrestle yet. The plan was to wrestle at the pay-per-view. I sat and listened to Moxley's Rocky 3 idea. I explained how I'd never seen a Rocky movie, and I thought the idea sucked, but if this is what the boss wanted to do, and he wanted to do it, whatever. He said he wouldn't lose to me. I scoffed. I'd never experienced someone refusing to lose to me. I just laughed. I asked Tony if this is what he wanted. He said yes. He's the boss, so I said okay, but I'd need to be cleared first. They kept saying it could just be a squash match, so I didn't need to be cleared. I scoffed at that. My health is more important. Dave Meltzer is a liar. Jericho is a liar and a stooge. There were plans, but plans always change, but I'll never put a company above my health ever again." Of course, that post was then quickly deleted by Punk, with some suggesting it could violated a talent agreement that all AEW talents sign when they actually sign a contract with the company. Now, Meltzer today has provided an update in the latest and in this ongoing CM Punk controversy on Wrestling Observer Radio, saying, quote, "This is twice that I went through a freaking guilt trip. The first time, if you recall, was when he did the quote on Sports Illustrated and he was like, the Young Bucks called Dave Meltzer and blah, blah, blah about whatever, which was a couple of weeks before the big blow up, and then everything happened there. And you all know that I thought, man, I should have just told him that the Young Bucks had nothing to do with it. Now, do I really believe anything would have happened differently? Probably not. But, you know, you just don't know, and I kind of feel like it wasn't my job to do it, but it kind of was. Not job, but I just felt really, really bad and real guilty. I should have just said these guys had nothing to do with this, but whatever. So then this time, I did a message board post that I really wish I never did, because so much has happened since then in so many destructive ways. Not just him, it was somebody just going, one thing we can say was that it was all smooth as far as the match that he lost to Moxley Moxley, the real quick match before he beat him for the title, and I just kind of said it really wasn't that smooth, because it really wasn't. There was a lot going on, there was drama and everything. When I said it, I wasn't writing a news story or anything like that, but when I said it, I never said a lot of it had to do with his injury, and it did. In his defense, he was coming back from a broken foot, and it was a serious injury, and that played into it as far as when he was going to be ready. Whatever you think of the angle, the way the angle was, the whole Rocky 3 thing, if you had more time, the angle would have been better if you had more time. But because of the injury, you didn't have more time. There's things they could have done, but the whole point is a message board post that I didn't need to make, and I didn't mention the fact that the injury was part of it, in the fact that there was drama, which there was. So it's just like there was, I feel really bad about it. So Meltzer is expressing regret for posting the Instagram post and not really giving the full context of the situation, which in fairness, CM Punk then gives more context of the situation. So Meltzer is there suggesting that he is partly to blame as to what was going on with all that kind of stuff. Then, Meltzer would turn his attention to the aftermath of the message board post, stating, quote, and then he goes, it's not like him saying Dave Meltzer's a liar. I hear stuff like that on a daily basis. I try to never do that, but it's like, whatever. I felt like, you know what? I wasn't really thinking. I didn't really tell the whole story, and then everything happens from there. And again, it's almost the same thing, because it's like, it's funny how different people take what I call the shrapnel, because I remember one time somebody was mad at me, and I go, what are you mad at? And then they said, well, Brian said blah blah blah, and it's like, I'm not Brian. And by the way, I wasn't fair to what you Brian said either, but whatever, that's nothing to do with it. And so then it's like he kind of blasted Moxley too a bit, and certainly blasted Jericho. And this was at a time where everyone is trying to see if you can make up and make this thing work and do the best thing for the company. And then this happened, which is just how it's going to turn out. Who the hell knows? But certainly it's never a good time to do that. And Jericho had absolutely nothing to do with this message board post, nor did Moxley. And now it's like, God, I just didn't like this. I'm just really sad that it happened this way. I want the best thing for the business, both companies. I'm happy WWE's doing great, and shoot, I was really happy watching Wednesday and seeing AEW get the good rating and the good rating pattern, which was a really good story. The match, he's referring to Kenny Omega versus El Hijo del Vikingo, worked. You kind of made a star in one night. We talked about that, was a phenomenal match. So everything was kind of looking, there's always ups and downs, but that was a real up. And now, who the hell knows what's going on? Meltzer would conclude by looking at the impact of the various statements swirling around the story, saying, quote, usually when something like this happens, it means nothing. But when it actually negatively affects the business of wrestling, and this could, I don't know. There's so many different things I could say about it, but I don't want to say more other than there are people who live for this and push this stuff. And in a lot of cases, I think that some of the guys may be what they are, and some of the guys you may be manipulated by people into thinking those guys hate you, those guys hate you, and just making it that they start believing it. But I'll always hear from almost everyone in wrestling at some point, like, he doesn't like me, and it's like, why would I not like anyone? It's not a personal thing. Every single situation is different. I've done a million analogies. The Punk thing we've talked about for months in September, and now it's come to fruition because the one thing was that he got hurt, which meant that there was going to be no issues. I mean, there were issues, but no public. You can't bring him back until he's healed, so it wasn't any decision that had to be made. Well, now we're at the point where it is something, and look, the guy's a draw, or he was a draw, and he's the biggest draw in the history of the company, so the guy's a draw. Historically, is the promoter going to try and bring him in? Yes, but this situation is unique because things have happened, and not everyone's going to be happy with it, and you've got to get people on the same page, which I always said, they've got to get everyone on the same page. If he comes in and everyone is just furious and doesn't want it, it's going to create a lot of unrest in the company, and you don't want that. People go like, oh, screw the wrestlers, it's up to the people to make money. A messed up dressing room is just going to end up being destructive, and people are going to quit. So there'll be more issues that have happened there that we've already seen. So you want the best dressing room. Anyway, I have no idea how it's going to turn out, but it was probably, I don't know, if I had anything to do with it, I'm really sorry that I didn't. You know, it's funny because it makes no difference probably, but if I just said, this is the story, he was coming off an injury, and the injury played a part in the timing of everything and how it went down, and if he got mad and said I was a liar at that point, okay, it's fine. It wasn't me. But when he said that about the other guys, it was like, that's not going to be great for the dressing room. And I sensed that a lot. Will they just laugh it off? I don't know. It's just something that it's just so sad to me how it all went down. So I know obviously that's a lot, and Meltzer can waffle on more than I. But what I do think is quite interesting there is Meltzer basically saying, yeah, I effed up. I kind of made a mistake because I didn't tell the full story. And it would appear that not telling the full story is really what set off CM Punk in that manner. And he regrets making the post and also regrets not telling the full story. But this is what it goes back to in the entirety of this whole situation, isn't it? It's people telling portions and parts of the story and generating narratives based off that. We still don't know the full story. The genesis involving all of this involves hearsay and speculation about CM Punk trying to get Colt Cabana fired, and that's not true, but why was that put out there? Was that even put out there? All that kind of stuff. A failure to communicate and a failure to provide the entire context of the whole situation has led to this now that should have been fixed way early on. And Meltzer can try and distance himself from it, but frankly, he's got a part to play in it because lots of different people played their part in all of this. Now let's talk about the Acclaimed. The Acclaimed, one of the most popular acts in the company, have got a bit cold recently, but despite that, they're still selling a ton of merchandise, the most merchandise. On the February 8th edition of AEW Dynamite, Austin and Colton Gunn defeated the Acclaimed to win the AEW World Tag Team Championships. This decision was met with a mixture of apathy and disappointment after Max Caster and Anthony Bowens, along with daddy-ass Billy Gunn, had become the most over acts in All Elite Wrestling. Despite being granted their rematch in a four-way bout at AEW Revolution, Caster and Bowens have been unable to regain their titles and now find themselves in a storyline with the Jericho Appreciation Society members Daddy Magic, Matt Menard, and Cool Hand Angelo Parker. After seeing the latest updated list of top merchandise sellers for the company, this decision seems possibly ill-advised or maybe even a little short-sighted. According to WrestleNomics, the Acclaimed ranked number 1 in the top 10 AEW merchandise sellers for 2023 so far, based on weekly updated data. So this is weekly data. This isn't just, in January they're really hot. This is still, as of this week, they are still the most popular merchandise sellers in the entirety of the company. This won't be a surprise to most fans, with the former AEW World Tag Team Champions scissor-inspired shirts and foam fingers being widely popular and seen in crowds weekly on AEW Dynamite and Rampage. The rest of the top 10 includes The Elite, MJF, Danhausen, FTR, The Briscoes, Hangman Adam Page, the Blackpool Combat Club, and Sting as well. The Guns are set to defend their AEW World Tag Team Championships against FTR after Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler put up their careers in the company to get a title shot opportunity on last week's edition of Dynamite. We don't actually know when that title match is going to be taking place, but it's quite interesting, isn't it, that the Acclaimed are still so popular, selling so much merchandise, but they've kind of been phased out of the tag team title picture. What do you guys think of that? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Now, switching gears to this coming Wednesday night on AEW Dynamite on TBS, several matches have been announced. Arguably the biggest is an IWGP United States Championship match that is now set for this week's edition of Dynamite. Earlier on last week, following his New Japan Pro Wrestling Cup final match, Cobb called out Kenny Omega, telling him he would be in St. Louis next week, challenging him to an IWGP United States Championship match in St. Louis. Tony Khan has since taken to Twitter, officially announcing the match for this week's episode of Dynamite. Of course, the show's going to feature the return of Adam Cole to in-ring competition for the first time since last year's Forbidden Door pay-per-view, when he takes on Daniel Garcia of the Jericho Appreciation Society. The new AEW All Access reality show will premiere following the Dynamite broadcast on TBS as well. In addition to that, more matches have also been announced for the show. Following his victory over Chris Jericho at AEW Revolution, Ricky Starks cut a promo in the ring before he was attacked by Juice Robinson. Over the next few weeks, Starks would call out Robinson, including on last week's Dynamite, where he called to meet him in the ring on AEW Rampage last week. Starks demanded Robinson face him on next week's Dynamite show in St. Louis, but Robinson said he only fights when the lights are on bright, which is in Long Island on April 5th. So that match is going to be happening not this week, but I guess the week after on Dynamite from Long Island. Now, in addition to that, more matches have been announced for AEW Dynamite this coming week for the March 29 broadcast on TBS. The first new match announced for Dynamite sees the former Ring of Honor World Six-Man Tag Team Champions Dalton Castle and the Boys take on Blackpool Combat Club's Jon Moxley, the Ring of Honor World Champion Claudio Castagnoli, and the Ring of Honor Pure Champion Wheeler Yuta. Khan also announced a title match for Dynamite as Orange Cassidy defends the International Championship against The Butcher. Another new match sees the firm's Matt Hardy with Ethan Page in his corner take take on Jungle Boy Jack Perry. Also announced was Willow Nightingale versus Ruby Soho of the Outcasts, while previously Soho and Nightingale teamed together against Anna J.A.S. and Tay Mello from the Jericho Appreciation Society. It seems after her return from injury, Anna J may start a new feud. We'll talk about that in just a second, about Anna J's return to television. That's in addition, as I mentioned, to all of these other matches that have also been announced on television too. Now let's switch gears and talk about FTR. We did reference them and their feud with the Guns. Now the future of Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler has been up in the air in recent months, with Dax noting that the duo's AEW contracts are set to expire in April, which has been disputed. Of course, on last week's edition of AEW Dynamite, FTR challenged the Guns to an AEW World Tag Team Championship match, with FTR putting their AEW career on the line. Dax recently revealed that he and Cash have indeed made a decision on their future and are hoping that fans would respect their decision. Well, Dax took to Twitter over the weekend where he listed the recent injuries that he has been working through, claiming that some fans would never be happy, accompanied by tribalistic comments from the wrestling fandom, already ready not to respect whichever decision FTR make. Dax said, quote, "Currently, torn bicep, torn labrum from my groin to my hip, 3-inch needle in my right knee every couple of months, torn labrum in my shoulder, all for what? To try and make you happy. But it seems like it doesn't matter what we do, some of you will never will be. That is a fact of life," to steal a phrase from LA Knight, Eli Drake, who whatever you want to call him. Not only will wrestling fans never be happy, but people will never be ever happy, and you can't please everyone all the time, so you have to do what you think is the best. Little life lesson. Let's switch gears and talk about Anna Jay as well. We kind of just spoke about her and all this going on. Now, the Jericho Appreciation Society has been down a member over the past few months, with Anna Jay being off television due to an injury. Anna revealed she actually suffered some dislocated ribs during her and Tay Mello's street fight against Ruby Soho and Willow Nightingale on the January 13 edition of AEW Rampage. That street fight was absolutely brutal. There was the powerbomb that was off the stage and missed the table completely. Now, Anna returned to the ring at the prior weekend's AEW House Rules live event, where she was defeated by Dr. Britt Baker, and she made her return to AEW television last week too. Anna returned during Jake Hager's match against Brody King, with her coming to the aid of her JAS ally, attacking Julia Hart of the House of Black at ringside. Anna's interference was not enough to get Hager the victory, however, with Brody King picking up the win. Of course, this seemingly is building to a trios championship match at some point between the House of Black and the Jericho Appreciation Society, most likely, but Anna Jay is indeed now back on television. Now, there was some concern about an injury possibly suffered by Action Andretti following concerning news from Friday's AEW Dark and Dark Elevation tapings that a match was stopped prematurely. The talent in question has provided an update on their status. The match in question that we're talking about was Slim J and Action Andretti, and unfortunately was waved off before the finish due to an injury concern regarding Andretti in particular. Thankfully, Andretti has now posted a health update via Twitter stating, quote, "To anyone wondering, I did not suffer any injuries yesterday at the Dark tapings in Orlando and am 100% healthy. I want to thank the AEW medical team and the rest of the AEW staff for taking the proper safety precautions to ensure that I was okay and I had no serious injuries." The 25-year-old has emerged as quite the rising star on AEW television in recent months, aligning with Ricky Starks and playing a major role in Starks' rivalry with Chris Jericho and the Jericho Appreciation Society. Andretti was also featured in this year's Face of the Revolution ladder match, however, he would come up short. But good news that Andretti is not injured and it was just an injury scare. Finally, Matt Hardy has praised and backed the booking of his boss, unsurprisingly, AEW President Tony Khan. AEW star Matt Hardy has now defended Tony Khan's booking, sharing his honest opinion on recent fan discussions. Speaking on his Extreme Life with Matt Hardy podcast, Matt Hardy argued that wrestling fans feel so entitled nowadays, calling the situation very strange. Noting that he will support Tony Khan 100%, Hardy said, quote, "It is really an intriguing concept that so many fans that consider themselves die-hard fans, and this is no disrespect to them, but they are so caught up and captivated by the inner workings of the business and why things are happening. They feel like they can book better than the booker who actually runs the show. It's so crazy now. Wrestling fans feel so entitled, especially the more diehard, smart fans that are online. They feel entitled like, no, my opinion counts. You're wrong, and I'm right. That's very strange, but it is what it is. That's the world we live in today, so we just have to learn how to deal with it. But at the end of the day, Tony Khan is the guy flipping the bills. He makes the decisions. He's paying everybody, so it's his decision to make. If he makes it, I support him 100%. So Matt Hardy supporting his boss. as one would do and as any good employee, independent contractor would indeed do. But there you go, guys. It's the latest AEW news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.